There exists a silent theater of power that most people never witness, a stage where respect is not requested but commanded, where dominance is not declared but demonstrated through calculated silence. Machiavelli understood what the masses have forgotten, that the most devastating response to disrespect is not the explosion of rage nor the plea for recognition, but rather a strategic withdrawal so complete, so absolute, that it transforms the offender's world into a landscape of their own irrelevance. While ordinary souls scramble to defend their wounded pride with words that evaporate into nothingness, the truly formidable understand that certain battles are won not through confrontation, but through a dark maneuver so elegant it leaves opponents questioning the very ground beneath their feet. This is not about becoming liked, admired, or even feared in the conventional sense. This is about ascending to a realm where your mere absence becomes more powerful than another's presence, where your silence speaks with the authority of thunder, and where those who dared to diminish you find themselves suddenly grasping at shadows, wondering when the tables turn so completely. The architecture of disrespect relies entirely upon your reaction, your emotional investment, your need to be seen as worthy by those who have already revealed themselves unworthy of witnessing your worth. Every moment you spend explaining yourself to someone who has disrespected you is a moment you gift them dominion over your peace, your time, your sovereignty. Machiavelli observed that princes who concern themselves with the opinions of the insubordinate soon find their throne surrounded by jesters mistaking themselves for counselors. The dark move, the one that separates those who merely survive social hierarchies from those who redesign them entirely, involves recognizing disrespect not as an assault to be defended against, but as information to be strategically processed. When someone shows you through their actions that they perceive you as beneath consideration, they are handing you the most valuable intelligence possible. They have revealed their blindness, their miscalculation, their fundamental misunderstanding of the forces they are dealing with. And it is precisely in this moment of their arrogant certainty that you must execute the maneuver that will redefine every interaction that follows. Consider how the world truly operates beneath its polite veneer, beyond the comfortable lies we tell ourselves about fairness and meritocracy. Those who occupy positions of genuine power do not beg for respect from every corner, do not exhaust themselves proving their value to audiences incapable of recognizing it. Instead, they employ a principle so ruthlessly effective that it appears almost invisible to those trapped in conventional thinking. They remove their energy, their presence, their validation from those who fail to honor it, and they do so without announcement, without drama, without the weakness of needing the other party to understand what has occurred. This is the dark move in its purest form, a withdrawal so total that it creates a void where your engagement once existed, a void that grows more conspicuous with each passing day, until those who disrespected you begin to feel the weight of what they have lost without ever being told directly what happened. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately as the exercise of power in its most refined state, where the wielder needs neither the sword nor the proclamation, only the disciplined capacity to make their absence felt more profoundly than most people's presence. The tragedy of the average person's response to disrespect is that it confirms the very diminishment being suggested. When you argue, when you explain, when you seek to convince someone of your value after they have demonstrated their inability to perceive it, you are participating in your own devaluation. You are accepting the premise that your worth is subject to their judgment, that their opinion carries weight in determining your position. The dark move requires you to abandon this entire framework, to recognize that not all audiences deserve a performance, that not all stages merit your presence. There are those who will encounter you and immediately recognize what stands before them. who will instinctively understand the gravity of your character and adjust their approach accordingly. And there are those who will not, who will mistake your kindness for weakness, your openness for availability to abuse, your initial accessibility for perpetual tolerance. It is this second category that necessitates the maneuver we are discussing, the calculated removal of yourself from their sphere of influence, executed with such precision that by the time they realize what has shifted, the distance between you has become unsurmountable. What makes this move truly dark, truly devastating in its elegance, is that it operates on a level most people never access because they are too busy fighting battles on the surface. While others are defending, explaining, and exhausting themselves in the theater of social combat, you are simply withdrawing your light from spaces that have proven themselves unworthy of illumination. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of caring what others think is often necessary in politics, but the reality of being controlled by others' opinions is the fastest path to irrelevance. The dark move ends disrespect not by confronting it directly, but by making the disrespectful irrelevant to your reality, by ascending to a plane where their judgment, their behavior, their entire existence becomes background noise to the symphony of your purpose. And when you have truly mastered this, when you have internalized the profound truth that not everyone deserves access to you, something remarkable happens. You stop attracting disrespect altogether because the energy you emit no longer signals availability for such treatment. You put yourself above everyone else not through arrogance or proclamation, but through the quiet certainty that your presence is a privilege, and privileges, once abused, are permanently revoked. The first principle Machiavelli would have you understand is that power is never about the volume of your voice, but the weight of your silence. When disrespect enters your field, the instinctive response is to meet it with force, to correct the offender, to reassert your position through words and actions designed to restore the balance. This instinct, however natural, is the very trap that keeps most people circling in patterns of perpetual disrespect. Every time you respond to diminishment with explanation, you are implicitly accepting the premise that the disrespectful party has the standing to judge you in the first place. You are participating in a trial where you were never meant to be the defendant. The dark move begins with the radical acceptance that not every provocation deserves a response, that not every slight merits your energy, and that the highest form of power is the ability to look at disrespect and decide, in the depths of your sovereign mind, that the source is beneath consideration. This is not about pretending the disrespect did not occur or suppressing your natural emotional response to being diminished. It is about processing that information through a different framework entirely. When someone disrespects you, they are providing you with data about their character, their judgment, and their capacity to recognize value when it stands before them. They are telling you, through their actions, that they lack the discernment necessary to understand what you represent. Machiavelli observed that a prince who concerns himself with the opinions of fools soon finds himself making decisions designed to please the unpleasable, while those of true judgment drift away from his court. The same principle applies in every arena of human interaction. When you receive disrespect, you are receiving a gift of clarity, a moment of truth that reveals exactly how much weight to give this person's presence in your life going forward. The strategic withdrawal is not about running away or avoiding confrontation out of fear. It is about resource allocation, about recognizing that your time, your energy, your emotional investment are finite resources that must be deployed with the precision of a general arranging troops on a battlefield. Every moment you spend engaging with someone who has demonstrated their inability to value you properly is a moment stolen from pursuits and people worthy of your presence. The masses spend their lives in reactive mode, bouncing from one perceived slight to another, exhausting themselves in the defense of an ego that grows more fragile with each defensive maneuver. The individual who has mastered the dark move operates from a different paradigm entirely, one where disrespect is simply information that triggers a recalibration of where that person now exists in your universe. Consider the mechanics of how most people handle being disrespected. They confront, they demand apologies, they seek acknowledgement of the wrong that was done. And in doing so, they hand over enormous power to the person who disrespected them. They make their peace contingent upon the offender's response, their sense of justice dependent upon whether this person chooses to recognize the error. This is a position of profound weakness disguised as strength. The dark move inverts this entirely. When you withdraw strategically, when you remove your presence without explanation or demand, you retain complete sovereignty over your emotional state. You are not waiting for them to do anything. You are not hoping they will realize what they have lost. You are simply acting on the information they provided you, making a calculated decision about resource allocation, and moving forward with the quiet certainty that their access to you was a privilege they have now forfeited. Machiavelli would remind you that in matters of power, perception often matters more than reality, but only among those who lack the wisdom to distinguish between the two. The perception you create through strategic withdrawal is not the perception of someone wounded or afraid, but rather someone who has assessed the situation and found it unworthy of continued investment. There is a vast difference between retreat and strategic repositioning, between running away and choosing not to waste ammunition on a target that does not merit it. The dark move is always the latter. It is the conscious decision that this person, this situation, this dynamic has revealed itself to be incompatible with your trajectory, and therefore the most powerful thing you can do is remove yourself from the equation entirely, not out of hurt, but out of strategic clarity. The withdrawal must be complete, not partial. This is where most people falter, where they execute the move halfway and wonder why it lacks impact. They distance themselves, but still check to see if the person noticed. They remove their active presence, but continue to monitor from the shadows, hoping to witness the moment of realization, the dawning awareness of what was lost. This half-hearted execution transforms what should be a position of power into an exercise in continued emotional dependency. The dark move requires you to genuinely, completely redirect your attention away from the person who disrespected you, not as punishment, not as a statement, but as a natural consequence of having reclassified them in your mental hierarchy. They are no longer relevant enough to occupy your thoughts, let alone your actions. When you have executed this withdrawal with full integrity, something profound occurs in the underlying dynamics of power. The person who disrespected you, who perhaps did so from a position of assumed superiority or casual disregard, suddenly encounters a shift in the terrain. Where they expected reaction, they find nothing. Where they anticipated continued access, they discover absence. And because human beings are fundamentally wired to notice changes in attention and status, this absence begins to register in ways that no amount of argument or explanation ever could. You have not told them they were wrong. You have not demanded they recognize your value. You have simply demonstrated, through your actions, that their opinion of you is so inconsequential that it did not even merit a response. And in the architecture of social power, there is perhaps no more devastating message than complete indifference executed with perfect consistency. The human mind is peculiarly constructed in that it assigns value not to what is readily available, but to what requires effort to obtain or maintain. Machiavelli understood this intuitively when he counseled that a prince should be difficult to access, that the ease with which one can approach power diminishes the perceived magnitude of that power. The same principle operates in every human relationship, every social dynamic, every interaction. where respect and status are being negotiated beneath the surface of polite conversation. When you are always available, always responsive, always willing to engage regardless of how you are treated, you are training people to devalue your presence. You are teaching them, through your consistent availability, that access to you costs nothing, and what costs nothing is treated as worthless. The dark move leverages this fundamental aspect of human psychology by transforming your presence from a constant into a contingency. Before the disrespect, you were perhaps open, available, generous with your time and attention. The person who disrespected you had become accustomed to this availability, had begun to take it for granted, in the way that people always take for granted what they believe will always be there. Your withdrawal shatters this assumption completely. Suddenly, where there was predictable access, there is void. Where there was engagement, there is silence. And because this shift occurs without explanation, without the clarity of cause and effect spelled out in explicit terms, the person's mind begins to work, begins to question, begins to fill the void with narratives that almost always amplify your status rather than diminish it. This is the paradox that most people never grasp. The less you explain, the more power your withdrawal holds. When you tell someone exactly why you're distancing yourself, you give them a roadmap for how to potentially win you back. Or alternatively, you give them ammunition to dismiss your withdrawal as an overreaction. You keep yourself in the arena of their judgment. But when you simply disappear without commentary, when your engagement evaporates like morning mist with no explanation offered, you create a mystery that the human mind feels compelled to solve. And in attempting to solve it, in running through various scenarios and possibilities, the person who disrespected you is forced to sit with their own behavior, to review their actions, to wonder if perhaps they miscalculated in their treatment of you. Machiavelli observed that people respect what they fear to lose more than what they are grateful to have. This is not a cynical observation, but a practical one, rooted in how human beings actually operate rather than how we wish they would operate. When you remove your presence, you transform yourself from something possessed into something lost, from a constant into a variable. And it is in this transformation that your value in the other person's perception begins to shift. They may not have respected you when you were available, when you were present, when you were actively participating in their life, but your absence creates a vacuum that their mind fills with increased valuation, not because you have changed, but because the context has changed. What was taken for granted is suddenly recognized as something that had value all along. The strategic withdrawal also serves another critical function. It protects your own psychology from the corrosion that comes from continued engagement with disrespect. Every time you interact with someone who has shown they do not value you properly, you are subjecting yourself to a subtle form of psychological erosion. You may not notice it in the moment, but over time, these interactions compound, creating a baseline of diminished self-regard that colors every other aspect of your life. By withdrawing completely, you're not just making a strategic move in relation to them, you are also practicing the highest form of self-respect, which is refusing to place yourself in environments or dynamics where your value is questioned or diminished. You are choosing yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of the fundamental understanding that you cannot build a life of significance while tolerating relationships that reduce your significance. Consider how different this is from the common advice to communicate boundaries, to express how the disrespect made you feel, to work through the issue collaboratively. All of that assumes a baseline of good faith and mutual respect that the disrespect itself has already violated. Machiavelli would tell you that when someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them and act accordingly without the naivety of hoping they will transform into someone different. The dark move is built on this foundation of clear-eyed assessment. It does not require the other person to change, to grow, to suddenly develop the capacity to see your worth. It simply recognizes that they currently lack that capacity, and rather than exhausting yourself trying to open blind eyes, you redirect your energy toward those who already possess the vision to recognize what stands before them. The absence you create must be maintained with absolute consistency to have maximum impact. The moment you waver, the moment you check in or respond to their eventual reaching out, you undermine the entire architecture of the move. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect because it requires you to resist your own impulses toward closure, toward wanting them to understand, toward hoping for acknowledgement of what they lost. The dark move demands that you let go of all such needs, that you genuinely move forward as though that chapter has closed completely. Only then does your absence carry the weight of finality, the gravitas of a door that has not just been closed, but removed from its hinges entirely. When executed with this level of integrity, the strategic withdrawal transforms you in ways that extend far beyond the specific situation of disrespect. It strengthens your relationship with yourself, confirms your commitment to your own standards, and sends a signal to the universe at large about what you will and will not tolerate. Others who witness this, even indirectly, recalibrate their approach to you. You become someone who is clearly not available for casual disrespect, someone whose presence carries weight precisely because it is not guaranteed, someone who has demonstrated through action rather than words that access to you is a privilege that can be revoked. And in this transformation, you ascend above not just the person who disrespected you, but above the entire paradigm of seeking validation from those unqualified to provide it. True elevation occurs not when you climb to meet others on their level, but when you recognize that certain levels are beneath the altitude at which you are meant to operate. Machiavelli understood that a prince who descends to the level of every critic, every challenger, every voice of dissent, soon finds himself mired in conflicts that diminish his capacity to rule effectively. The same principle applies to personal sovereignty. When someone disrespects you and you engage with that disrespect on its own terms, you are accepting their framing of reality, their assessment of the hierarchy, their implicit claim that they have standing to judge you. The dark move rejects this framing entirely by refusing to participate in a game where the rules themselves are designed to diminish you. Disengagement is not the same as avoidance. Avoidance carries the energy of fear, of running from something you cannot handle. Disengagement carries the energy of discernment, of choosing not to expend resources on battles that do not serve your larger strategic vision. When you disengage from someone who has disrespected you, you are making a statement about resource allocation, about opportunity cost, about the fundamental truth that your time and energy are your most valuable assets and must be invested with the precision of a master trader allocating capital. Every hour you spend processing someone's disrespect, every ounce of emotional energy you pour into making sense of their behavior or trying to change it, is an hour and an ounce unavailable for pursuits that actually compound your power, your peace, your progress. The mechanics of this elevation through disengagement operate on multiple levels simultaneously. On the practical level, you are removing yourself from a dynamic that was draining your resources and distorting your focus. On the psychological level, you are retraining your own mind to value yourself independently of others' recognition of that value. On the strategic level, you are repositioning yourself in the social hierarchy by demonstrating through action that you exist on a plane where certain behaviors simply do not reach you. And on the spiritual level, if we can use such a term in the context of Machiavellian philosophy, you are aligning your actions with your values, living in integrity with your understanding of what you deserve, and what standards you hold for how you allow others to treat you. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But he also understood that the highest form of power requires neither fear nor love from everyone, only respect from those who matter and indifference from those who do not. The dark move is the embodiment of this principle. You are not seeking to make the person who disrespected you fear you, nor are you hoping they will suddenly love or appreciate you. You are simply rendering their opinion irrelevant by removing yourself from the equation of their judgment. In doing so, you elevate yourself to a position where their disrespect cannot touch you, not because you have built walls around your heart, but because you have built standards around your life that naturally exclude those who operate beneath a certain threshold of awareness and respect. The elevation is also relational. As you remove your energy from those who disrespect you, you create space for relationships with those who naturally recognize your value. This is not about replacing one person with another to fill some void, but rather about operating from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. When you cling to relationships where you are disrespected, you are operating from the scarcity mindset that these are the only connections available to you, that you must tolerate poor treatment because something is better than nothing. The dark move requires you to embrace the opposite understanding, that nothing is often far better than something toxic, that an empty space in your life is preferable to a space filled with people who diminish you, and that by clearing out what does not serve you, you create room for what does. Consider the long-term trajectory of someone who consistently executes strategic withdrawal from disrespect versus someone who consistently engages with it. The first person gradually curates a life surrounded by individuals who respect them, who value their presence, who treat engagement with them as the privilege it is. Their circle may be smaller, but its quality is exponentially higher. The second person remains trapped in a cycle of defending themselves, proving themselves, seeking validation from those fundamentally incapable of providing it. They may have more connections, but those connections are sources of drain rather than sources of energy. Over time, these different approaches compound into entirely different life experiences, different levels of peace, different qualities of relationship, different degrees of personal power. The mechanics also involve a recalibration of your own identity and self-concept. Each time you tolerate disrespect, you are teaching yourself that you are someone who can be disrespected. Each time you execute the dark move, you are teaching yourself that you are someone whose standards are non-negotiable, whose presence is valuable, whose time and energy are precious resources not to be squandered on those who cannot appreciate them. This internal recalibration is perhaps the most important aspect of the entire process, because it is the foundation upon which all external changes rest. You cannot rise above others in any meaningful sense while still seeing yourself through their diminished perception of you. Machiavelli would counsel that in matters of power, what you tolerate sets the standard for what you will continue to receive. If you tolerate disrespect once, without consequence, you are teaching people that disrespect is permissible in their dealings with you. If you execute the dark move consistently, establishing a clear pattern that disrespect results in immediate and permanent withdrawal of your presence, you are teaching people that the cost of disrespecting you is the total loss of access to you. This is a lesson that reverberates far beyond the individual instance, creating a reputation and reality where you simply are not someone who gets disrespected, not because you are aggressive or confrontational, but because you have made the consequences of disrespect so clear and so final that people instinctively adjust their behavior before they even consider treating you poorly. There exists a form of dominance that requires no display, no assertion, no aggressive posturing. It is the dominance of the individual who is so secure in their value that they need not defend it, so certain of their position that they need not proclaim it, so comfortable with their power that they can wield it through absence as effectively as others wield it through presence. Machiavelli observed that the most dangerous princes were not those who raged and threatened, but those who could watch an offense occur with the calm eyes of someone calculating the precise moment and method of response. The dark move channels this same energy of unreactive dominance, where your response to disrespect is not emotional volatility, but strategic stillness. Reactivity is the hallmark of powerlessness. When someone can elicit a predictable response from you, they control you. When your emotions can be triggered on command, you are a puppet whose strings are being pulled by whoever chooses to pull them. The person who disrespects you is, consciously or unconsciously, testing to see if they can provoke a reaction, seeking to establish their ability to affect your emotional state, claiming a form of power over you by demonstrating that they can disturb your peace. Every time you react with anger, with defensiveness, with the need to correct or confront, you are confirming their power over you. You are proving that they can reach you, affect you, control your state with their actions. The dark move inverts this power dynamic completely by denying them the reaction they seek, by responding to their provocation with a stillness so complete that it suggests their action was beneath notice. This unreactive stance requires tremendous internal discipline. The natural human response to being disrespected is emotional activation, a surge of anger or hurt or indignation that demands expression. The dark move asks you to feel these emotions fully while simultaneously refusing to let them dictate your actions. It is the difference between suppression and mastery. Suppression is pretending you do not feel what you feel, pushing emotions down where they fester and eventually explode. Mastery is acknowledging what you feel while maintaining the sovereignty to choose your response independent of that feeling. You can be angry and still choose strategic withdrawal over confrontation. You can be hurt and still choose dignified silence over explanation. The emotions are valid, but they do not have to determine your strategy. Machiavelli would recognize this as the highest form of self-governance, the ability to rule over your own impulses and reactions with the same firmness that a prince must rule over his territories. When you master this, when you can observe disrespect with the calm assessment of a general surveying enemy movements rather than the reactive fury of a soldier in the heat of battle, you access a level of power that most people never experience. You become unpredictable in the most unsettling way, not because you are erratic, but because you do not conform to expected patterns of emotional reaction. People cannot manipulate what they cannot predict, cannot control what does not react according to familiar scripts. The unreactive execution of the dark move also preserves your dignity in ways that reactive responses never can. When you explode in anger, you give observers a show, you become entertainment, you reduce yourself to someone who can be provoked into losing composure. When you withdraw with calm finality, you maintain the mystery and gravitas of someone operating from a deeper understanding than those around you can immediately grasp. You do not explain, because explanation would be wasted on those who lack the capacity to understand. You do not justify, because your actions need no justification to those whose judgment matters. You simply move with the quiet authority of someone who knows their own value and needs no external confirmation of it. Consider how this unreactive dominance affects not just the person who disrespected you, but everyone who witnesses the dynamic. When others see you respond to disrespect with emotional volatility, they learn that you can be provoked, that your composure is fragile, that you are operating from a position of insecurity. When they see you respond with strategic withdrawal, with a calm removal of your presence and energy, they learn something far more profound. They learn that you are someone of substance, someone who does not waste energy on unworthy battles, someone who operates from a foundation of self-respect so solid that external disrespect cannot shake it. This perception compounds over time, building a reputation as someone not to be trifled with, not because you are aggressive or vindictive, but because you clearly value yourself too highly to engage with those who do not. The power of unreactive dominance lies in its sustainability. Reactive responses are exhausting. They drain your energy, distort your focus, keep you perpetually engaged with negativity. You cannot maintain a reactive stance indefinitely without burning out, without becoming bitter, without transforming into someone you do not recognize. Unreactive dominance, by contrast, preserves your energy because it does not require constant vigilance or emotional expenditure. Once you have made the decision to withdraw, once you have executed the dark move with clarity and commitment, you can redirect that energy toward productive pursuits. You are not sitting around stewing in resentment or plotting revenge. You have simply reclassified someone in your mental hierarchy and moved on, the way you might note that a particular route is under construction and choose an alternate path without spending the rest of your day obsessing about the inconvenience. Machiavelli understood that in the grand theater of power, those who maintain their composure while others lose theirs ultimately write the narrative of what occurred. When you respond to disrespect unreactively, when you execute strategic withdrawal with the calm precision of a surgeon making an incision, you control the story. Others may speculate, may wonder, may create narratives to explain your absence, but none of those narratives will cast you as weak or defeated, because your very composure in the face of disrespect signals strength. The person who disrespected you may even attempt to claim victory, to tell themselves and others that you ran away, that you could not handle confrontation. But those with discernment will see through such claims, will recognize that true strength is not found in engaging with every provocation, but in the wisdom to know which battles deserve your presence and which deserve only your absence. Every social environment operates as a geometric configuration of relationships, status hierarchies, and power dynamics. Most people move through these configurations reactively, accepting the positions they are assigned, playing the roles others expect of them, existing within the geometries that have been constructed by circumstances and conditioning. Machiavelli understood that those who truly shape their world do not accept existing geometries. They reconfigure them, they redraw the lines of relationship and power to serve their strategic vision. The dark move is fundamentally an act of geometric transformation, a refusal to occupy the position that disrespect attempted to assign you, and a claiming of a position so elevated that the original slight becomes irrelevant. When someone disrespects you, they are attempting to establish a geometric relationship where they are above and you are below, where they have the authority to judge and you have the obligation to accept that judgment. Every conventional response to disrespect, whether confrontation or explanation, operates within this geometry. You are still accepting the framework where their assessment of you matters, where the dynamic is about proving yourself worthy of better treatment. The dark move shatters this geometry entirely by refusing to participate in it. You are not moving up or down within the established hierarchy. You are removing yourself from that hierarchy altogether and establishing a new geometric configuration where you exist on a separate plane. This transformation of social geometry is visible in how relationships reorganize themselves around your withdrawal. Before the disrespect and your subsequent execution of the dark move, there was a certain structure to how people related to you and to each other within your social sphere. Your withdrawal creates a vacuum, and vacuums in social systems do not remain empty. The structure begins to reorganize. People who were peripheral may move closer. People who took you for granted may suddenly realize the centrality you held. The person who disrespected you may find that their social position was more dependent on your presence than they realized, that in attempting to diminish you, they have diminished themselves. None of this requires your explanation or your active management. It occurs naturally as a consequence of your absence, the way removing a load-bearing element from a structure forces the entire structure to redistribute weight. Machiavelli would observe that in matters of power, position is relational and dynamic, not absolute and fixed. The same person can be above you in one geometric configuration and below you in another, depending on the framework being employed and who controls the terms of engagement. When you allow someone's disrespect to pull you into defense or explanation, you are accepting their framework, playing by their geometric rules. When you execute the dark move, you are asserting your own framework, establishing your own geometric configuration where their judgment is simply irrelevant to your positioning. You are no longer concerned with being above them in their hierarchy. You have established a separate hierarchy where you are the sovereign authority, and they do not even register as significant enough to merit a position. This transformation extends beyond the individual relationship to affect your entire social ecosystem. As word spreads, as your pattern of responding to disrespect becomes known, people recalibrate their approach to you. They learn, through observation of how you handled the person who disrespected you, that there are consequences to treating you poorly, that those consequences are not dramatic or aggressive, but simply the total withdrawal of your presence and energy. This knowledge shapes behavior more effectively than any amount of explicit boundary setting or confrontation. People adjust their treatment of you, not because you demanded respect, but because you demonstrated through action that disrespect results in loss of access, and most people, when they understand the actual cost, will choose to maintain access over indulging disrespectful impulses. The geometric transformation also operates internally in how you structure your own mental and emotional space. Before mastering the dark move, your internal geometry may have been organized around seeking validation, around hoping that others would recognize your worth, around a kind of psychological dependence on external confirmation. The consistent execution of strategic withdrawal from disrespect reorganizes this internal geometry completely. Your sense of self becomes less dependent on others' recognition, more rooted in your own assessment, more sovereign in its operation. This internal transformation then radiates outward, affecting every interaction and relationship, because you are no longer approaching social dynamics from a position of need, but from a position of offering, no longer seeking to prove your value, but simply embodying it and allowing those capable of recognition to benefit from proximity to it. Machiavelli understood that social geometries are ultimately power structures, and power structures favor those who can operate from a position of independence rather than dependence. When you need something from someone, they have power over you. When you are indifferent to whether they grant or withhold that thing, the power dynamic inverts. By becoming genuinely indifferent to the presence or absence of those who disrespect you, by reaching a state where you can honestly say that their access to you matters more to them than to you, you have fundamentally reconfigured the geometry of power. You have ascended not through aggressive claiming of a higher position, but through the far more elegant method of simply no longer occupying the lower position they attempted to assign you. The most profound aspect of this geometric transformation is that it becomes self-reinforcing. Each time you execute the dark move, you strengthen your internal geometry of self-respect and sovereignty. Each time someone experiences the consequences of disrespecting you, the broader social geometry adjusts to reflect your actual position. Over time, these individual instances compound into a completely different social reality, one where you exist at a level of regard and respect that was not given to you but claimed by you through the consistent application of standards and consequences. You have not argued your way into this position. You have not pleaded for it or demanded it. You have simply demonstrated through action, over and over, that you will not occupy any other position, and the social world, operating on the same principles of economics and physics that govern all complex systems, has reorganized itself around this unmovable fact of your sovereignty. Alchemy sought to transform base metals into gold, to transmute one substance into something of entirely different value and nature. The dark move performs a similar transformation, taking the base metal of disrespect and transmuting it into the gold of strategic distance, turning an apparent negative into a profound positive. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately as the mark of sophisticated power, the ability to take what others intend as an attack and convert it into an advantage, to use the energy of the offense itself as fuel for your elevation. Most people allow disrespect to weigh them down, to diminish their self-perception, to create wounds that fester. The master of the dark move uses disrespect as the catalyst for clarification, as the signal that triggers beneficial separation, as the information that allows for optimal reallocation of limited resources. The alchemical process begins with reception rather than resistance. When disrespect occurs, the instinct is to resist it, to push back against it, to refuse to accept what is being communicated. This resistance keeps you engaged with the disrespect, keeps you processing it, keeps it alive in your consciousness. The alchemical approach receives the disrespect as information, acknowledges that it occurred, and immediately begins the process of transformation. The question is not, how dare they, but rather, what does this tell me about them, about the relationship, about where I should be investing my energy? This shift from resistance to reception is the first stage of the alchemical transformation, where you stop fighting against what happened and start using what happened. The second stage involves distillation, separating what is useful from what is not. In the occurrence of disrespect, what is useful is the clarity it provides about the other person's character, judgment, and capacity for relationship. What is not useful is the temptation to internalize their assessment of you, to allow their disrespect to shape your self-perception, to carry their judgment as though it has validity. The alchemical process distills the useful information while discarding the useless poison. You extract the knowledge that this person has revealed themselves to be unworthy of your continued investment, and you discard any notion that their poor treatment of you reflects your actual value rather than their limited capacity to perceive value. Machiavelli understood that in matters of statecraft, a prince must be able to extract utility from every situation, even those that initially appear disadvantageous. The same principle applies to personal sovereignty. The disrespect that seemed to threaten your dignity or position becomes, through alchemical transformation, the very catalyst that elevates you. By triggering your strategic withdrawal, it has done you the service of removing someone from your life who did not belong there, of creating space that can now be filled with better relationships, of clarifying your standards and strengthening your resolve to maintain them. What they intended as diminishment has become the mechanism of your ascension. The third stage of the alchemical process is crystallization, where the transformed substance takes its final elevated form. This is the stage where your strategic withdrawal, your execution of the dark move, becomes a permanent fixture of your life structure rather than a temporary reaction. The distance you create is not something you maintain while hoping they will come back changed. It is a crystallized reality, a permanent reconfiguration of your social geometry where they now exist outside your sphere of active engagement. This crystallization is what gives the dark move its power, what transforms it from a tactic into a principle, from a response into a standard. You are not withholding your presence as a punishment. You have genuinely reorganized your life such that your presence is now unavailable to those who have demonstrated their inability to value it. The alchemical transformation also affects your relationship with disrespect itself, not just with the individual who disrespected you. Before mastering the dark move, disrespect may have felt like a personal assault, a threat to your dignity, something to be feared and avoided. After repeated successful executions of the dark move, disrespect becomes something different entirely, a useful signal, a clarifying moment, almost a gift in its capacity to reveal truth quickly. You no longer fear disrespect because you know exactly what to do with it. You have a reliable process for transmuting it into something that serves you. This transformation of your relationship with disrespect is perhaps the most powerful aspect of the entire alchemical process, because it means you are no longer vulnerable to disrespect in the way that most people are. Machiavelli noted that fortune favors those who can adapt their methods to changing circumstances while remaining constant in their ultimate objectives. The alchemical approach to disrespect embodies this principle perfectly. Your method adapts to each instance, each person, each context, but your objective remains constant: to maintain your sovereignty, to protect your peace, to ensure that your energy is invested in relationships and pursuits worthy of it. The disrespect itself is merely the raw material, the circumstance that triggers the alchemical process. How you transform that raw material through strategic withdrawal, through unreactive dominance, through geometric reconfiguration, determines whether it poisons you or elevates you. The final product of this alchemical transformation is not just distance from a particular person who disrespected you. It is a fundamentally different relationship with your own value. A crystallized understanding that you do not need to convince anyone of your worth, that you are willing to be alone rather than tolerate poor treatment, that your presence in anyone's life is a privilege that can and will be revoked if mishandled. This is the gold produced from the base metal of disrespect, a transmutation that leaves you wealthier than you were before the offense occurred, not despite the disrespect, but because of how you chose to respond to it. At the apex of personal power sits a state of being that Machiavelli would recognize immediately: immovable sovereignty, the condition where your sense of self, your standards, your peace exist independent of external validation or attack. This is not arrogance or delusion. It is the natural result of consistent application of the dark move. The inevitable outcome of repeatedly choosing self-respect over the comfort of familiar relationships, strategic withdrawal over reactive engagement, dignified silence over desperate explanation. When you have executed the dark move enough times, when you have demonstrated to yourself and the world that certain lines cannot be crossed without permanent consequence, you establish a sovereignty that becomes self-evident, that requires no defense because it is simply the unmovable reality around which others must navigate. This sovereignty manifests first in how you carry yourself. There is a difference between someone who hopes they will not be disrespected and someone who knows with absolute certainty what will happen if they are. The first carries a subtle anxiety, a watchfulness for signs of disrespect, a preemptive defensive posture. The second carries a calm assurance, a relaxed confidence that comes not from believing disrespect will never occur, but from knowing exactly how they will handle it when it does. They do not need to announce their standards or threaten consequences. Their very presence communicates that they exist on a level where certain behaviors simply do not reach them, where disrespect triggers not emotional devastation, but strategic recalibration. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must be both loved and feared. But if he cannot be both, he must prioritize being feared, for fear is more reliable than love. In the context of personal sovereignty, the dark move creates something more subtle and powerful than fear. It creates respect, born from recognition that you are immovable in your standards. People may not fear you in the conventional sense, but they understand at a fundamental level that you will not compromise your boundaries, that access to you is contingent on respectful treatment, that the consequence of crossing your lines is not drama or confrontation, but simply your permanent absence from their reality. This understanding shapes behavior more effectively than either love or fear alone could. The immovable sovereignty also transforms how you experience relationships. When you are desperate for connection, willing to tolerate poor treatment rather than be alone, every relationship carries an element of anxiety, a fear of loss that makes you compromise your standards. When you have established immovable sovereignty through consistent execution of the dark move, you approach relationships from a completely different foundation. You are no longer afraid of loss because you have proven to yourself repeatedly that you are willing to lose access to anyone who cannot treat you properly. This fearlessness paradoxically makes you far more attractive, far more valued, because people sense that your presence is not guaranteed, that it must be earned through consistent respect, that the person you are today is someone who will not tolerate being diminished. The establishment of this sovereignty is cumulative. Each time you execute the dark move, you are making a deposit into an account of self-respect that compounds over time. Each withdrawal from disrespect, each refusal to explain yourself to those unworthy of explanation, each demonstration that your standards are non-negotiable adds to the balance of your sovereignty. Eventually, you reach a tipping point where the sovereignty becomes self-sustaining, where it no longer requires conscious effort to maintain because it has become integrated into your identity, woven into the fabric of how you exist in the world. You do not have to decide to execute the dark move anymore. It happens automatically, naturally, as the only conceivable response to disrespect, because any other response would contradict who you have become. Machiavelli understood that true power is measured not by what you can do to others, but by what others cannot do to you. The immovable sovereignty established through mastery of the dark move represents the highest expression of this principle. Others cannot disrespect you with impunity. They cannot drain your energy with their dysfunction. They cannot manipulate you with their judgment or opinions. Not because you have built impenetrable walls or become callous, but because you have become so clear about your value and so committed to protecting it that you will always choose yourself over tolerating mistreatment. This clarity and commitment create an energetic field around you that either repels those incapable of respect or transforms their behavior before they even consider disrespecting you. The final aspect of immovable sovereignty is that it liberates you from the exhausting work of managing others' perceptions. When you are still seeking validation, still hoping that if you explain yourself well enough or prove your value convincingly enough, people will treat you better, you are trapped in a cycle of perpetual performance. When you have established immovable sovereignty, you no longer perform for anyone's approval. You simply are who you are, with clarity about your standards and consistency in maintaining them. Those who recognize your value are welcome to benefit from proximity to you. Those who do not possess that recognition are free to exist elsewhere. You are not trying to convince anyone of anything. You have moved beyond the realm of persuasion into the realm of simple, immovable fact. This is who I am. These are my standards, and they are not subject to negotiation or compromise. This is the ultimate elevation, the final ascension that the dark move facilitates. You put yourself above everyone else, not through claims of superiority, but through the establishment of sovereignty that places you beyond the reach of those who operate from disrespect, manipulation, or diminishment. You exist on a plane where such behaviors simply do not function, where they trigger nothing except your calm, strategic withdrawal. And in this sovereignty, you find not isolation but liberation, not loneliness but peace, not the absence of connection but the presence of only those connections worthy of your remarkable, irreplaceable presence. The journey from the first moment of disrespect to the establishment of immovable sovereignty is not traveled by the masses who remain forever trapped in cycles of seeking validation from those incapable of providing it, who spend their precious lives defending themselves against judgments that should never have been granted weight in the first place. Machiavelli would observe that most people live as subjects in kingdoms they never chose, following rules they never questioned, tolerating treatments they never deserved, all because they lack the clarity to see that sovereignty is not granted by others, but claimed by those brave enough to refuse subordination. The dark move is the mechanism of this claiming, the precise instrument through which you extract yourself from dynamics designed to diminish you and elevate yourself to the plane where you were always meant to exist. It is not a trick or manipulation, but rather the most honest expression of self-respect possible, the willingness to be alone rather than compromised, the courage to remove your presence from those who cannot honor it, the wisdom to recognize that not all battles require your participation and not all people deserve your engagement. What makes this move truly dark in the most beautiful sense is its quiet devastation, its ability to reshape entire landscapes of relationship and power without a single word of explanation, without dramatic confrontation, without the exhausting theater of proving your point. You simply disappear from the equation, and in that disappearance, you create a void that speaks louder than any argument could, that demonstrates value through absence more effectively than presence ever managed, that teaches lessons about consequences without the need for lectures or warnings. The person who disrespected you may eventually understand what they lost, may come to recognize that they miscalculated in their treatment of someone who possessed far more value than they could perceive in their moment of blind arrogance. Or they may never understand, may construct narratives that protect their ego from the truth of what occurred. And this is the deepest magic of the dark move. Their understanding is completely irrelevant to your elevation. You do not need them to recognize what happened. You do not need closure or acknowledgement or apology. You needed only to remove yourself from their diminishment. And in doing so, you have already won every victory that matters. The sovereignty you establish through consistent execution of this move becomes the foundation upon which you build a life of dignity, peace, and purpose. No longer are you available for the casual cruelty of those who mistake your openness for weakness, your kindness for unlimited tolerance, your initial accessibility for perpetual availability. No longer do you waste your finite energy on infinite battles with people who are ultimately fighting themselves through you. You have become someone who exists in a different frequency entirely, someone whose very presence carries the unmistakable energy of standards that are maintained, boundaries that are enforced not through aggression, but through the simple application of consequence. And in this transformation, you discover that the quality of your life improves, not because you have more relationships, but because every relationship you do maintain exists at a level of mutual respect that most people never experience. Surrounded as they are by connections they are afraid to lose, even though those connections drain more than they provide. Machiavelli understood that in the grand theater of power and human interaction, the final measure of a life is not how many people claim to know you, but how you carried yourself through the inevitable moments when others revealed their true nature. The dark move is how you carry yourself with dignity intact, with sovereignty established, with the quiet certainty that you are worthy of respect and willing to enforce that truth through action rather than petition. It is how you rise above, not through climbing over others, but through refusing to remain in places where you are asked to make yourself smaller, dimmer, less than what you are. It is how you establish that your presence is a privilege, That access to you must be earned through consistent respect, that the moment someone demonstrates their inability to value you properly is the last moment they will have the opportunity to try. So let those who lack the courage for sovereignty continue their endless cycles of seeking approval from those unqualified to grant it, defending themselves against judgments that should have been dismissed rather than entertained, tolerating treatments that should have triggered immediate withdrawal. You have learned the dark move, have understood its mechanics and its power, have seen how disrespect transforms from threat into gift when you know how to transmute it into the gold of strategic distance. Now execute it with the precision it demands, maintain it with the consistency it requires, and watch as your world reorganizes itself around the immovable fact of your sovereignty. The life that emerges on the other side of this transformation is not one you had to beg for or argue into existence. It is the life that was always meant to be yours, waiting patiently for the moment you would claim it by refusing to occupy any other position. And in that claiming, in that final elevation above everyone else who remains trapped in their need for universal approval, you discover what Machiavelli knew all along, that true power whispers while weakness shouts, that sovereignty is demonstrated through absence as much as presence, and that sometimes the darkest move is simply the light of your presence choosing to shine elsewhere, leaving those who could not appreciate it to their well-earned darkness. If this exploration of power, dignity, and strategic sovereignty resonated with something deep within you, if you felt the truth of these principles stirring recognition in your soul, then know that this channel exists as a space for those ready to claim their sovereignty, to rise above the games of those still playing at power rather than embodying it. Leave your reflection in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to understand that they do not have to tolerate disrespect. And join this community of individuals committed to living with the immovable standards that separate the sovereign from the subject. Your presence here is valued, your engagement matters, and together we explore the ancient wisdom that remains as relevant today as when Machiavelli first articulated these timeless truths about power, respect, and the art of living on your own terms.